YouTube land. My name is Jerry. I sometimes ride this motorcycle, and I'm gonna try my hand at video logs, or video blogs, or vlogs, or motovlogs. Alright, so I started watching motovloggers a few years back, and I'm pretty sure the first person that I ever watched was Blockhead from Orlando. And I think it was because I came across his why he decided to go with the Sportster 48 or the 883 iron, I think that's what it was, over such and such, yada yada yada. Not that I was thinking about buying a Sportster. I was just kind of trying to get an idea of why people were going for one bike versus the other, and I just happened upon one of his videos. So a little bit about me. I'm a backwoods brush ape from Virginia, but I've been living in Florida now for 11 years, and I love it. Mainly because of this right here. You can pretty much ride all year round, as long as you can brave a little bit of rain and some slight cool weather in the wintertime. So I've had this bike, which is a 2009 Harley Dyna FXDB, which is a street bob. I've had it for, I think, 2 years now, but this isn't my first bike, but it is my first Harley that I've owned myself. I have ridden a few other Harleys for extended periods of time, the last one being a 2007 straight bob that belonged to one of my best friends. He has a 2015 Street Glide. So he said, well, I don't ride that thing that much anymore. How about you, every time we want to ride, you take this one out. Once he got rid of it, I decided, well, I like that bike so much, I'm going to get the exact same one. Which I've always been a fan of the Dynas. My stepdad actually had a lowrider, I think it was a 97. That was the first Harley that I ever operated. I used to ride on, when I was younger, I used to ride on the back of his, he had a 2000 Fat Bob. Not Fat Bob, Fat Boy. I don't think the Fat Bobs were around then. So, you know, I grew up basically in a Harley family. But unfortunately, you know, as we all know, Harleys can get a bit expensive. So my first bike that I quote-unquote bought, I say quote-unquote because I purchased it, didn't have the title, and then by the time I got the title, I ended up reselling it to my uncle, was a 1990 Yamaha FJ 1200, which was a sport touring bike, and man, that thing was immaculate. Didn't have a scratch on it, sat in some old man's garage for years and years and years, just needed some tender loving care. So I had every intention of getting that thing up and running and on the road, but fate didn't have it that way. Couldn't find any parts, or at least the ones I found I couldn't afford to buy, because at the time I wasn't as financially stable as I would say I am now. So I ended up selling it to my uncle, and that was that. So I went bikeless for years. I was fortunate enough that my buddy Ryan rode, and his dad rode, and his dad, fortunately enough, had, I'm taking this road here. His dad actually had a couple of bikes in the garage, and one of those I was able to ride, which was, can't remember the year of it, probably early 2000s. Suzuki Bandit 1200 again, which was another sport touring chassis. Really fast bike, very comfortable bike, super smooth, still carbureted too. but ran like a dream. Of course, that was all due to Ryan, because he is a freaking whiz kid when it comes to mechanics and, well, pretty much everything. That guy just, you set something in front of it, if he's never seen it before, he's gonna figure out what's wrong with it. Because basically his mind works that way. But yeah, I rode that off and on for a couple of years whenever we went out, you know, little group rides. That was in Jacksonville, Florida. We used to go down to St. Augustine and stuff and ride out to the beaches and everything. It was fun. I really enjoyed that bike, and I was fortunate that that bike was available for me to ride pretty much whenever I wanted. So I've gotten pretty lucky, and the same thing goes when I made the move from Jacksonville to where I am now. I met my buddy Dana and his wife Audra, and me and my fiance, who was just my girlfriend at the time, we basically just fell in love with those two and became the bestest of friends. And like I said, he had that 2007 Street Bob, and he said, whenever you want to ride it, come and get it. Basically, it rekindled my love for Harleys again, because like I said, I grew up on them. First bike, you know, other than a dirt bike I ever rode was a lowrider, Dyna, of course. And I've always loved it, always had a soft spot in my heart. So I got one of those El Cheapo Amazon GoPro knockoffs a little while back. Started fiddling around with that. The picture was it left some to be desired, I guess that's how you put that. And but it was still fun tinkering with it. And then I ended up getting a hold of this GoPro. It's a Hero 4 Silver, and went on Amazon, grabbed me a couple more batteries for it, a battery charger, and then per the recommendations of Shade Tree Surgeon and out of Tampa / Ybor, who is my favorite, by far favorite motovlogger, I grabbed the mic adapter and a couple of those cheap laptop boom mics, and here we are now. I'm not gonna do this as like a full-time thing or even a part-time thing. This is gonna be just a way for me to capture riding footage, because let's face it, every motorcyclist out there, doesn't matter what you're riding, if you stick a camera on your helmet or on your chest or whatever it may be and film yourself riding, yeah, it's fun to think that other people are going to watch it, especially if you put it up on YouTube or you send it to your friends and family. But let's face it, guys, we like to watch our own selves riding. I mean, I know I do. I'll be the first one to admit that I have a blast just seeing kind of the point of view, again, just sitting there, especially, you know, on those rainy days, or, you know, when the weather's poor and you can't ride, or maybe you just don't feel up to bringing the bike out and getting geared up. But you can still just, you know, flip up your phone or throw it up on your computer and just sit there and just kind of watch yourself go through your neighborhood, or, you know, your local favorite rides, which is what I'm on right now. This is just a small little road that is in Sarasota that I've been riding now for a little while. I just like it because A, it's not the highway or the interstate, and B, it's you know, it's just pretty. It's simple, it's back roads, and it doesn't go anywhere really. I don't have any intentions of becoming quote-unquote YouTube famous, right? I mean, yes, I will be posting these on YouTube, but mainly I just want to do I talk to myself anyways when I'm riding, whether it's in my head or out loud. A lot of times it's out loud. So, you know, talk to the camera, why not? And B, you know, I want to get some footage of just the random places that I ride, mainly because I have some buddies that are still back in Virginia that and Maryland that you know, A, they don't get to ride all year round, and B, you know, I wouldn't mind just kind of showing them some of the area down here, because they've unfortunately haven't been able to come and visit me. So, you know, it'd be nice to just kind of get some of this stuff on footage. And I know my mom likes seeing this stuff too, so, because I'm a total mama's boy. And plus I think the aspect of, you know, something possibly happening and me being able to capture it on GoPro, that, you know, on video, that way I've got an argument. I think she would I think she would appreciate that. So I'm just doing this for me. And even though it's funny, because I hate to hear myself talk or sing, you know, and I think that happens a lot. I think some people, it happens to a lot of people. I mean, when you hear yourself, like if somebody's taking a video and you don't know you're in it and you hear yourself in the background, at least me, the first thing I say is, who is that freaking hillbilly back there blabbering on about nonsense? It's also kind of the same way when I record myself singing too. I'm like, ugh, in my head I sound a lot better. But oh well. So this is actually Honore Avenue. Honore Avenue? Yeah, I think it's an avenue. But I think it just changed actually at that light. It turned into something else. But it basically, right over there is I-75 south, which those cars over there. So this kind of runs adjacent to that for a brief while, and then turns into something else. Let's see. I know that everybody usually, when they go out and ride, especially Blockhead and Shade Tree, and John Maxwell, because that's another one of my favorites. He's a great guy. He actually, John Maxwell, funny story, when he was getting up and running with his channel, you know, and I know he's still good at it now, but like he was really good about, and he still is. Let me say that he still is really good about this. But so he'll definitely answer comments on the YouTube page, and you know, he'll respond as many as he can, and at least like as many as he can. And I know all the other guys do it too, but specifically for John Maxwell, before I bought this bike, I had a budget of I think about $7,000, and which, you know, these sport bike guys, and you're gonna say, man, you can get, you know, 2 bikes for that amount, because you know some of these sport bikes are cheap. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to have one. I'd especially love to have another a sport touring bike, you know, like a Bandit. Those bikes are just so much fun, and they're so comfortable, and you know, you get the full experience of a sport bike, but you can kind of sit upright and be comfortable and have a nice squishy seat and ride 2 up if you need to. But when I was in the market for getting this bike, before I found this particular one, I found a couple 2000, in between like 2005 to 2006 or 7, something like that. A lot of them were 2006s, which I kept thinking was kind of odd. It's like every bike I came across, whether it was a lowrider or a street bomb, or some other variant of a Dyna, Super Glide, anything like that, they were all 2006s or 2007s, which I thought was interesting. So I just started doing, I'm one of those guys, if I'm spending more than like 20 or 30 bucks, I will research the hell out of it, because I don't know, I've been broke too often in my life that I don't want to be broke anymore. So if I'm spending more than 20 or 30 bucks, I'm gonna go ham on the Google machine trying to figure out what it is I'm spending my money on and how long it's gonna last me and all that jazz. I kept finding all of this information on the cam chain tensioners and all this kind of stuff for the certain twin cam model motors, and years, you know. So I figured, well, hey, you know, John Maxwell, he's the Harley tech, right? He's the highly trained unprofessional. So I said, he's the Harley tech. Let's get a hold of him. Let's see if he'll answer an email. And sure enough, man, the same day, like I sent him an email because he had it up on his channel, sent him an email at about probably 10 or 11 o'clock, and sure enough, man, by like lunchtime, he had a response for me. It blew my mind. So he basically said, like, yeah, it is an issue, you know. If I were you, I'd stay away from that year specifically. So I said, okay, no problem. Well, then I found this bike and got a killer deal on it. And it had less than 10,000 miles on it. Like I said, this is a 2009. It's got the 96 cubic inch big twin and 6-speed tranny. It's got the proximity sensor on the key fob, that if anybody moves it and I'm more than like 20 feet away, this big, really loud, annoying alarm goes off and everything. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty sure that I'm the third owner of this bike. I bought it from a middle-aged fella, and apparently the guy he had it from, or he bought it from, was the first owner. He was an old fella, and I'm telling you, every bit of extra that went into this bike all had Harley-Davidson stamped on it. I mean, the guy had zero interest in the aftermarket. He wanted all HD on this bike. So there's like a $800 pair of saddlebags on this bike. There used to be a Sundowner, Harley-Davidson Sundowner solo seat with a over-the-fender luggage rack that also had a pillion with a sissy bar that clipped to the luggage rack, which all that together was something like $500 or $600 worth of stuff. There was foot pegs and highway pegs, which the highway pegs are still on here. I left them on. I really like having them. Just everything the guy did was all straight HD. So he went ham when he got the parts catalog out and started ordering stuff after he got this bike. Oh, and a windshield too, which I still use from time to time. But killer deal, basically. Less than $10,000. I mean, less than 10,000 miles. Definitely less than $10,000. I actually spent under $7,000 for this. I won't go into too many more details about that. But anyways, and I've loved it, man, ever since. It's been a great bike. You know, I've done the regular maintenancing on it. I've had to put a set of tires on it, just due to age and just wear. So, yeah, man, I've absolutely loved this bike. I did just have to put a battery in it last weekend. She kind of wanted to leave me stranded at the gas station, which was an issue that I kind of foreseen happening. There was actually an aftermarket battery in here. It was one of those Parts Unlimited, you know, El Cheapo, like $40 batteries. It was in it, and a couple of times I thought maybe the battery was dying, because it would give like one turnover and then just bloop, clunk out, and all the lights would go off. And it turned out the couple of times that it did that, it was the negative terminal was loose. It just wasn't making good connection. So I'd have to snug it back up, and it'd be just fine after that. Went to Daytona with my boss, and had a great time. Just went for the weekend. Met my aunt and uncle. They've been riding for years, and did just fine on the way there. On the way back, never really seemed to have a hiccup, other than the fact there was a couple of times where she felt like she didn't want to kick over, almost like maybe the battery was getting juiced. But I didn't think much of it. But she got me all the way home, and you know, without a problem, and ran smooth as glass. But last weekend I went to go leave first thing Saturday morning. I was going to run up to Plant City. Made it about 2 miles down the road to the gas station, and after I got done filling it up, she didn't want to start. I tried 2 or 3 times, and then all of a sudden on the third time she didn't want to turn over at all. And then I saw the magic smoke come out from behind the battery cover, and I was like, holy cow, here we go. And I've never seen this happen before, but the lead terminal on the negative part of the battery straight up melted. Literally the only thing that the wire was attached to was the bolt and the nut, and it was just dangling inside of the kind of the battery housing there. Never seen anything like it before. So I called Rossiter's Harley Davidson, which is right there on Cattleman in Sarasota. They're great people up there. I called him and said, look man, I'm in a pickle. I'm about 2 or 3 miles from the shop at the gas station. Can you bring me a battery? And the guy was like, well, hold on. He's like, we're pretty crazy at the moment. Let me talk to my parts runner. So he comes back a minute or two later and he says, he's like, we got that battery in stock. If you want to pay for it, we'll bring it over to you. I was like, man, I definitely appreciate it. Hey, strawberries. So sure enough, here comes the guy about 15 minutes later on his bike. He just put the battery in his saddlebag or in his tour pack and brought the battery to me. And he goes, are you sure you don't need any tools or anything? I was like, nah, man, because I already had the old battery sitting on the ground right there ready to go. And so we did the swap. They gave me my receipt and I was on my way 10 minutes later. I do have plans for it. I would like to do a couple of upgrades. The most recent one that I tried to do was the handlebars. These are the factory, I think what they call the mini apes. They're either an 8 or a 10-inch rise stock, and they're fine. I'm comfortable. I am 6'1" and I have a real long upper torso, so I wouldn't mind. Like, so this is me sitting straight up. Obviously we all slouch when we ride. But this is me sitting straight up, and I've got it here would be about shoulder height, and this is ideally where I'd like the bars to be. But so I'd need at least maybe a 12-inch rise, I would say. I don't want to go any further than that because I really don't want to have to deal with messing with brake lines and clutch cables and the internal wiring. So, you know, of course, you'll watch somebody like John Maxwell who makes this stuff look easy, and even Biking Bird, actually. I mean, he's done a few builds now that he looks pretty comfortable tearing into these things, even when they're brand new, which would give me anxiety. I got everything tore apart with this particular, I don't know if this is the, you know, if it's the year or whatever it may be. The pigtails, when you pull out those rubber grommets on that kind of head there, that neck of the frame, the clips for the pigtails are not there. They're actually underneath the tank. I don't know how to explain it while I'm on the bike, but anyways, they're underneath the tank. Ideally, what you want to do is take the tank off in order to get to the plastic cover that sits underneath that bottom crossbar of the frame itself, the down tube, and then you'd be able to pull the pigtails apart. I didn't do that because I didn't want to take the tank off. I just lifted the tank up front until it basically bottomed out on that crossover tube, and was able to just get my fat fingers in there and pop those cables loose. But anyways, after pulling the old bar assembly off, I finally got to putting the new bars on, and I was already kind of disappointed. So I ordered LA Choppers Z-bars, the traditional, or what they call the old school Z-bars, and with a 10-inch rise. The problem with those is that they were nice looking bars and the finish on them was nice. They were too small. They were just straight up too small. The bar end to bar end width was only 2 feet 24 inches. It didn't look big enough for my bicycle. Those are definitely made for your sporties, I think, for sure. That's a Sportster bar. You know, so I had to send them back, and I took the restocking fee. But I tell you what, if you guys are planning on ordering something, order through Get Lowered. I mean, there's a reason why all these YouTube guys are using Get Lowered for their parts, because those freaking people, man, they're on it. They're really fast to ship the parts off to you. The shipping's free, and you know, when you have an issue, they'll answer that email in the first couple of hours. If not, you could, you know, and they'll call you too sometimes. Or, you know, if you ask them to, or at least you want to get a hold of them, they'll answer the phone up there. Rob especially was who I was dealing with. I think his name was Rob. He was a great guy. He helped me out. And like I said, you know, I had to take the hit with the restocking fee, but I knew that coming in. I mean, you can't run a business, you know, and not make money. I get it. No harm, no foul. Got to pay to play. The reason why people go for like the T-bars or the motocross style bars is because of the pullback. That's what it all comes down to. most of those bars are set up with minimal pullback. So these factory bars here, I think, have something like 8 or 9 inches of pullback. So it puts your wrist, I mean, yeah, when they're stretched out wide, naturally, as your arm goes out, your wrist turns. But if you want your arm straight out in front of you, you're going to be more of a, you know, of a straight, 90-degree kind of angle. Like you want it to be 90 degrees perpendicular with your chest. So that's why a lot of those guys run those bars. So with the gusseted, the Bun King gusseted adjustable T-bars, the reason why they even made those is because of these bikes. So for some reason, the motor company decided to put integrated risers into these that top triple tree there. So I cannot just pull those bars off and bolt up a regular riser. It's all integrated, milled into the actual top triple tree, which is kind of a nightmare. So Bun King thought of that, and you know, they want to make something for everyone. So they decided they were going to make a bar that, you know, has all the same dimensions as the T-bars, you know, with the minimal pullback and, you know, up to a 14-inch rise, except it fits in that space where the regular bars mount to. And I like that idea a lot, and they're reasonably priced too. I also think 4130 Chassis Works makes a bar like that as well. So I'd like to get those to get me sitting up a little straighter, get my hands more out in front of me instead of below me, with a minimal pullback, so it's a little bit more comfortable. And then I wouldn't mind, I'm kind of torn between getting one of those kind of fairing windshield combos like Memphis Shades makes, like the Gauntlet or the Road Warrior fairing, or getting something like the I think they call it the Rio Grande or something along those lines, where it's basically just like a sport shield that sits directly above the headlight and just gives you basically wind protection off your chest. I don't necessarily want to keep the wind off my head. I would just like it to be off my chest when I'm doing anything more than like 60, 65 mile an hour. Because when you're on that interstate, because, you know, I decided not to run the windshield when I went to Daytona the other weekend. And we took all back roads. We left from Plant City and we just went all the way to Daytona, pretty much on all back roads. So like the highest speed we ever reached was probably like 65. But even then, you know, anything over like 60, you're actually holding on to the bars. You know, you can't really relax. Like it's pushing you back so hard that, you know, your hands can get kind of fatigued just holding on to the bars. So I'd like to just have something, you know, big enough that it doesn't buffet my helmet, because that's kind of what that Harley Davidson windshield, it's one of those detachable ones. That's what that does to me. If I'm not like full on crouched back behind it, it rattles my head like a paint shaker, and it'll give you a headache after a half an hour. So I wouldn't mind having something small enough that it just keeps the wind off my chest, and if it hits my helmet directly, that's fine, as long as it doesn't rattle the mess out of it. So that's what I'm eyeballing. So eventually one day I'll pick up something like that. So will it look kind of like a club style bike? Perhaps. Is that my, you know, kind of my plan? Not really. But you know, I'm a young fella too, and I mean, I feel like there's kind of, I mean, there's all walks of life when it comes to Harley Dyna owners. You know, you got the guys that all they want is the club style, and you got the guys that want the old school kind of chopper look, where they put the big ape hangers on it, and they'll put the burly slam shocks in the rear, and, you know, low and, you know, low bike, high bars. I like that look too. I'm not, I don't disagree with any of it, man. I think it's, you know, just like everybody else, as long as you're out riding, that's all it really matters. And I appreciate all of it. You know, would I like to have a Road King that's like slammed out with big long fishtail pipes and big old ape hangers on it with chrome everywhere? Absolutely. That's like, if I could afford to just build whatever kind of bike I want, I would build one of those. I would build a kind of a big wheel street glide, and then probably like a Hoonigan style or a Sportster, you know, something not necessarily a flat tracker, but basically just, you know, something with one of them Hoonigan 1200 kits from Tracker Die, and basically just ready to just kind of mob around town, do power wheelies all day. I think that'd be a lot of fun. You know, I don't have the kind of money that I can just build up a bike and then be done with it. You know, I have other things I have to pay for. I got a truck I have to maintain. I've got a house I have to maintain. My dog, our dogs. Yeah, there's a lot of things in life that cost money, so I can't afford to just keep tossing cheddar at a bike. Will I eventually do it? I'm sure I will. Is it a priority right now? No. I'm just glad to be on two wheels and having fun and enjoying this beautiful weather, which I'm probably getting a bit of a suntan because, you know, it doesn't matter where you're at in Florida. We only live about 2 miles from the sun down here. Yeah, so this is the part of Sarasota where there's a lot of we say Amish, but I think they might be Mennonites. But I say that and I don't really know the difference between any of them. I feel kind of ignorant when it comes to that. I don't know what each religion means, but they're basically Amish. And Sarasota has a whole community of them, which I think is interesting. Killer food though, man. Oh, there's a place called Der Dutchman over here. It's like a buffet style restaurant. Holy cow. Talk about comfort food. That stuff is amazing. Anybody that comes down and visits me, that's one of the places that I like demand that we go. Because, you know, you spend like 14 bucks and you can eat until you literally pop. But you don't really feel disgusted with yourself because every bite was better than the last. So, worth it. Plus they have all these baked goods and stuff too, pies and like donuts, and oh, it's so good. I've never had a better like eclair donut than I have from Der Dutchman. Fantastic stuff. I don't even know, you know, I downloaded this free software for editing called, I think it's called Shotcut. Been learning how to tinker with that. I don't have a lot of money, man. You know, literally this GoPro was free. The batteries, the mic and all that stuff, I might have like 20 bucks invested into it. And maybe the same with the mount. I might have another maybe 10, 15, 20 bucks invested in sorting this mount out. But, you know, it's going to be for fun and to give me something to do, I guess, a hobby, I suppose. I also wouldn't mind, me and my buddy Logan have been talking about starting up a podcast for the longest time, and I think it would be cool. There's a lot of motovloggers that have their setup where you can hear their communicators in the video, and I think it's just running a 3.5 millimeter splitter in between the headset of the communicator and the output or the input of the microphone, the external mic. And if it's that simple, I might go ahead and get one. Shoot, I might even have one lying around, and try to set that up, because if I can get Logan on the call with me while I'm, you know, I basically set a ride and I set a time that'll take me that long to ride it, and we can do the quote-unquote podcast, but I can do it on the bike. Or we can just make it like a stream, and we don't have to necessarily, you know, have it as a podcast, because I've got like a condenser mic and stuff like that on my computer that would make far better audio than this. But it could be cool, because we definitely when we talk, we can get into some pretty gnarly discussions. They're a lot of fun, and you know, if I can record 10, 15, 20 minutes of that, I think that'd be a good time. I think the other way to do it too is to have an external kind of audio recorder, like one of those digital audio recorders. But I'm not ready to go that far. This is not, again, I'm not doing this for to be like a YouTube celebrity or like a full-time YouTuber. I'm not looking to like blow my channel up. This is just for fun. He's for fun. But I just love to ride whenever I can. I'm not out here all the time. You know, if I'm lucky, I might get out maybe once or twice a week. But I enjoy it, even if it's just putting around the area like this here. Unfortunately, Florida's kind of flat. So being on a road like this that has roundabouts is about the only big twisties I can get. But that's the other thing, you know, I'd like to at least capture some of the places in Florida that are fun to ride, and some of the destinations that you can get to. So eventually I might do a run where I go out east towards Mayaca or Arcadia. Woo! She's not very fast, but she makes a lot of noise. That's it for me. I'm gonna sign off. You guys have a good one.